What's up, Copy Squad? It's your boy Kyle Milligan coming to you from Boca Raton, Florida, and today I want to talk about a big problem that I see copywriters make in the very first earliest lines of their lead. That problem is called forgetting the reader. Today I'm going to explain to you what that problem is, what it looks like, and I'm going to show you an example from a master copywriter, one of the best in the business in history, and show you exactly how he rectifies this problem, how he properly addresses this problem of forgetting the reader by doing the exact opposite in every single line of his copy. And I'm going to show you that across 2 pages, because a lot of folks sort of think like it's like a technique. Oh, I just do this thing one time. They think about the new, easy, safe, and big 4 selling emotions. They think it's like, oh, I just push this button and oh, I did it. But it's actually a sort of meta theme that bleeds through every single line of copy. So I feel like it's a tough thing for people to sort of conceptualize. I'm going to show you an actual example in just a minute. First, I want to sort of address this problem, why it's so important, and why it's probably killing your copy. So when it comes to a sales argument, there are sort of 4 primary driving questions that you need to address at a thematic level in order to advance your sales argument. The first question is, what's in it for me? And that's what we're going to address today. The second question is, how is that possible? The third question is, how does it work? And the fourth question is, well, how do I get started? Now, the important aspect of this is the other 3 questions, how is that possible, how does it work, how can I get started, never appear in the reader's mind unless you do an appropriate job of conveying to them there is something super valuable that you want right away in it for you. If you do not do a good job of executing on that, you'll never get the opportunity to address the other 3 questions, because you'll never force or trigger it in their brain. It'll never come up in their headspace. So the problem I'm going to show you how to fix in just a second is forgetting the reader. And because the first question is, what's in it for me? This is a terminal problem that can occur in your copy and absolutely just ruin your copy from the get-go. And forgetting your reader is simply not tying whatever it is that you're talking about to the reader in the first 4 to 6 lines. And I'm not kidding about this. People make this mistake constantly. Go look at your website copy. Go look at your own sales promotional copy. Let me just explain how this sort of manifests where you forget the reader. First, you pick a topic that you think is just interesting to the reader, and you start going on and on and on about the topic without ever pulling them into the conversation, without ever saying exactly that this is something that will impact you specifically. There's 2 ways on a spectrum almost that this might manifest. One is you're like, well, this is a hot topic in the news and they're going to care, so they're going to pay attention. So you sort of just like are a news reporter telling them a story without bringing them in. And that actually is insufficient when it comes to sales copy. You have to tie it to them directly. Now, at a broader, grander scale is when you talk about like a global collapse, like society is going to collapse. The dollar is going to hyperinflate into non-existence. These sorts of super large, larger than life claims, you think, oh, of course the reader's going to care because this will obviously impact them. No, those are actually so big, so pie in the sky, so distant to the reader that it's hard for them to fathom like how this will impact their life specifically, in which case you have to start picturing or painting the picture of specific instances where this will impact this individual, not society, not this class of citizen, but this specific person. You have to tie it to the reader. And if you do not do that within the first 4 to 6 lines, you're going to lose your reader. And one more like criminally bad offense, one that absolutely makes my head explode, is whenever you get a copywriter who thinks it's their job to be like this hyper creative purple prose, almost painting poetry for the reader, and you've got the writer explaining like what the day was like, the weather outside, what they were having for lunch as they had this grand epiphany, and you end up with this flowery foo-foo bullshit copy that is garbage, trash, has nothing to do with the reader, and you have this pompous copywriter patting himself on the back like, oh, I'm so creative, I did a good job today. No, that's like the worst, absolute worst thing that you could, it makes my head explode. And I'm telling you, this is one of the most prevalent problems I've ever seen in copy. And it's the biggest pet peeve because it's the one that I probably hammer the most the most often and the earliest in my coaching, is I need to see what's in it for me in the first 4 to 6 lines. And we're going to show you examples of how that's done, and then done over and over and over, and never forgetting the reader. So without further ado, I'm going to leap into a screen share. I'm going to go through 2 pages of copy, 2 full pages, which is about the length of the entire lead for this particular letter. And this letter is going to be written by Mike Palmer, who's the chief copywriter at MarketWise, which is a giant publishing house. He's a historic, legendary copywriter in his own right. And this letter is addressed to copywriters. He's inviting them to learn how to become million-dollar copywriters. But you're going to see an impressive level of remembering the reader and keeping all the topic, all the subject, everything about the reader. Taking every single benefit, even whenever he builds up his own credibility, he uses that to assert to the reader that this is something very valuable and something beneficial for you, the reader. Even whenever he's talking about himself, you'll see how he knows there's a cadence to this, that he cannot ramble on and on talking about himself. He cannot ramble on and on talking about just the copywriting training or the school without, after 2 to 3 lines, immediately tying it back to the reader. So I really want you to pay attention to this. You're gonna want to study this video probably a couple times over and really pay attention specifically to this letter. Make sure you stick around to the very end, because you're going to see him open a loop in the middle, and he's not going to close it until the very end. He's going to keep you hooked that way so that you stick around and try to figure out what's the answer to that question. And if you want my full PDF breakdown with all the notes in the margin, along with a bazillion other PDF breakdowns, you should check out Copy Squad Lite. It's at copysquad.net/lite. In here, it's a membership where you can get access to our Discord community, hundreds of PDF pages, like probably 1,000 PDF pages of me marking up copy with my notes, as well as access to my book, Take Their Money, and a whole host of masterclasses and trainings that talk about how to get into copy, how to cold prospect, how to write emails, how to write story emails, how to write single thread emails, disrupt intrigue, click emails. There was just, and every month we're adding to this library. So definitely check that out if you're interested in getting more stuff like this breakdown here, and a community of like-minded copywriters that can help you along in your journey. Enjoy the breakdown and peace out, Copy Squad. Okay, let's start at the headline, and what we're going to be focusing on in this video is the writer's uncanny ability to make pretty much every line about the reader. It would surprise you how often copywriters forget their reader while writing something that they want them to buy. So the writer of this is Mike Palmer, the chief copywriter at MarketWise, and he has been in the game for quite some time. He's one of the most successful financial copywriters in the world. He wrote one of, if not the largest, financial sales letter packages in history, the End of America sales letter. So let's start with this headline and how he makes this about the reader right out of the gate. So, revealed on April 26th, the only secret you must follow to become a millionaire copywriter. So I have yellow right now for sort of like benefit, promise, like reader-oriented highlights. So you can see right here the use of the word you. You become a millionaire copywriter. Now, something that's really highlighted inside of this headline is he's leaning heavily on the new and only emotions. So the big 4 selling emotions, these are basically the value triggers, the emotional triggers that get people to buy things, are new, easy, safe, and big. And every one of these in big 4 emotions has an alter ego. So for new, it's only. For easy, it's anybody. For safe, it's predictable. And for big, it's fast. And I have a whole PDF sort of explaining this and demonstrating it. It's a free PDF at copysquad.net/4 triggers. You can check that out if you want more details on the big 4 selling emotions. Okay, in this next little part here, I would refer to as like the deck copy. So like this would be like the main headline. This would be like deck copy right below. You won't find this critical information in any book, internet blog, course, or manual, but everything you need to know is detailed below. So once again, you can kind of see the emphasis, the focus in this headline on the reader themselves, and then also doubling down on the only emotion, only available here. It's secret knowledge. You can't find this anywhere else. You can only get it here on this page. Very special, very unique. All right, so dear fellow copywriter, as the address, if you're determined to become one of the world's best and highest paid copywriters, Enough with the conferences, enough with the courses, books, internet groups, and online coaches. I'd say there's only a handful in the world who are worth your time anyway. If you're serious, really serious about becoming a great copywriter and getting rich, really rich in this business, I can tell you none of that stuff matters and none of it will get you where you want to go. So let's kind of break this apart a little bit. You see here the emphasis on the reader and the benefits, and right out of the gate, like basically line 1, what's in it for you? If you're determined to become one of the world's best and highest paid copywriters, okay? So I see this constantly. I tell this story all the time. This one time I was tasked with reviewing 85 copy submissions for a contest, and I had to pick 3 winners. So how in the world do you read through 85 submissions? I'll tell you how. You read the first 4 lines of all 85. And if they don't say anything to me, the reader, if they don't hint at a benefit, if they don't explain what's in it for me in the first 4 lines, I chuck it. Now I had to select 3 winners, so I only found 2 that actually talked to the reader in the first 4 lines and gave a benefit. So I had to look for all through the thing again. I went all the way to line 6. Third winner was basically able to do it in the first 6 lines. So check it out, man. I say it all the time. Make it about your reader and do it within the first 4 lines. 6 if you have a really, really, really long setup. But any longer than that, like, what are you doing? Go look at your website copy. Go look at, like, it's just anything. Like, people say all the time, like, I don't see it. I don't see new, easy, safe, and big. How do you make it about what's in it for me? Like, if you look at the best writers in the world, they abide the principles that I teach. People say they don't see NESB here or there, or they don't see what's in it for me in the first 4 lines. You're probably just looking at bad copy for the most part. Okay, so anyway, you can see here, not only does he get this idea of what's in it for you in the first line, he also sort of weaves in a little bit of like these sort of pain points and problems, like things that don't work, bad alternatives or whatever. And in the same time, like, this is another thing that's very advanced. Not only is he able to bring in these problems or pain points, but he still keeps them in the frame of the benefit of what's in it for you, going as far as saying if you want to get rich, really rich, I can tell you none of that stuff matters. So he brings it back to the reader and what they desire in this way. So it's very, 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 this is a little bit advanced, but this is very, very well crafted, very nuanced sort of benefit driven copy. None of that stuff matters, and none of it will get you where you want to go. So even whenever he says none of that matters, look what's hitched right behind it. None of it will get you where you want to go. A reminder of the promise here. In fact, almost everything you find in most copywriting blogs, courses, and manuals is often a complete waste of your time, and typically the exact opposite of what can take you to the top of this industry. So even whenever he's dumping on these alternatives, he still frames it in what can take you to the top of this industry instead of just dumping on them and then stopping there, which again would be like an amateur copywriter move, and probably an intermediate copywriter move would be they dump on it and they'd say, but that's all going to change, and then they would completely pivot into the benefits. Notice how he's able to stack both the problem, the pain points, dump on the alternatives, and at the same time, there's this frame, it's still framed in what's in it for me. So that's why I wanted to draw this to your attention, how it's possible and how it's so imperative and powerful to keep the reader, what's in it for me, first and foremost, okay? So he says, so let me say this as simply and plainly as I can. Okay, so he's going to start to say something and then inserts value or cred. So when you're writing, especially in the first page or two, you're going to have this pressure on, pressure off dynamic where you're going to be like pressure on with promise and building claims and basically like why you're here and some sort of benefit. And that's going to cause tension and skepticism. The way that you counterbalance that tension, like as the tension goes up, tension, skepticism, tension, you bring that back down a little bit with cred, and you want to keep that line taut. You want to keep that like kind of tight tension, and the way that you can keep it tight without snapping, insert a little bit of cred. So here's what he's going to do. After more than 2 decades of training dozens of copywriters, after selling millions of newsletter subscriptions and more than $1 billion in financial research products, after helping to build one of the largest publishing businesses in the world over more than 2 decades, I can tell you with 100% certainty, and this line got clipped, I just typed it in, there's only one thing that matters when it comes to making millions of dollars as a copywriter and reaching the top echelon of this profession. Okay, so notice here, here's a little tidbit, a little note for you, that whenever you're doing a cred section in a lead, don't go beyond 4 lines. Typically, you want to see 3 or 4 bulleted pieces of credibility, this is perfect. Sometimes I see copywriters go on what I call a resume run, where they just like list out everything that the guru's ever done. Like, hi, my name's this, and this is about me, 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 me. No, this is how you want to do it on page 1. You want to do short, succinct, bulleted pieces of credibility that tie to what you're about to offer to your reader. And he does that masterfully here. Then what does he do? Just like in this last piece, he ties this piece of cred. It makes sense now in the context of what's in it for me. So after doing all these things, I can tell you with 100% certainty stuff about you, stuff that you need, stuff that you want, stuff that you desire. Now that I've done all this, I can say I have your answers. See how even when he's doing cred, he's making it about the reader. This is why when I was reading this, I was like, oh my God, he never forgets the reader. He never, ever forgets the reader. And it's so refreshing because so many copywriters, the vast majority of copywriters, will slip up, go on a tangent, and completely forget to tie every piece of copy, every single thing they're talking about to what's in it for me. Especially in these early pages, in the lead section is critical. That's the meta question that you're addressing in the lead. Okay, so moving on. And today, I'm inviting a small group of folks to join me on April 26th for a free event where you'll learn everything you need to know about this secret, which is the mechanism. I underlined it in purple there. It's like the hidden, like this one secret will fix everything. And how to put it to use from more than a dozen copywriters who have earned at least $1 million in royalties. So even there's a little bit of cred. These copywriters are stamped. They're accredited in their own way. So we've got a bribe here. This is the thing that he's going to show us, teach us, reveal that keeps us hanging out. He says, here's the deal. The biggest mistake most copywriters make, including me. So this is something I really like. I have a note here. Both times he drops cred, he opens an idea and then sort of just stuffs the cred in there. So what's cool about this section, so we're still technically sort of kind of in the lead. He's going to introduce basically the problem section, which would be on the next section that comes after a lead. You go into the problem like, oh my God, here's what's holding you back and all that stuff. But what he does before he leaps into that, you'll see he brings it back up down here. But he stuffs more credibility in here and he uses this to further expand his cred and tie it back to the reader so smoothly. So check this out. My name is Mike Palmer. I launched the first in-house copy team at Stansberry Research back in June of 2002. And today, I serve as the chief copywriter and board director for MarketWise, the publicly traded company home to Stansberry Research and 12 plus other brands. I obviously don't have access to every publishing business's numbers, but as far as I know, Stansberry remains the most successful financial research business in the world. And the Stansberry Research copywriters continue to be among the highest paid writers on the planet. So look here, look how very smoothly, nuanced, subtly, he transitions back to the reader. He gives you a punch of what he did, what his, credibility, like here's why I'm someone that you should pay attention to and listen to. And then he makes this section right here, like this business is successful. Our business is successful, and therefore our writers, folks who work for this business, are successful, the highest paid writers on the planet. And that is sort of the opportunity he's presenting to you, the reader, today. So he finds that after like one little blip, two little blips, three-ish little blips, he transitions right back to the reader. He knows he only has a limited window where people are going to get bored and tired of listening to him talk about him. Again, writers mess this up all the time. You can see it in the cadence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, back to the reader. Okay, back to the reader. Okay, back to the reader. Do you do this when you're writing copy? Do you do this? Last year alone, a team of a dozen writers sold more than $185 million worth of financial research and earned over $5 million in copywriting royalties. This is what the reader wants. I'll introduce you to a few of these folks in just a minute so you can see how they did it. Okay, so again, like it's nonstop. He'll introduce us to these writers. He'll show us these writers. Why? So you can see how they did it. Okay? This is how does it work? Like this is, I'm going to pull the curtain back. You can see how they did it. You get the successful, super secret, we're going to show you. Again, I'm not just going to bring up these writers and tell you how much money they made, which is cool and you're impressed and your mouth's probably watering at the idea of making that much money and having that sort of opportunity. But I'm also going to show you how. Okay? Do you see how easy this is to do, how subtly he's doing it too, without just like screaming to the reader, you're going to be a millionaire, you're going to be a millionaire, you're going to be a millionaire. You see how all these little ways of jabbing and poking and bringing it back to the reader. But as you'll see, this letter is not about me or the other, but as you'll see, this letter is not about me or the copywriters I've hired and trained over the years. It's about you and your future. Again. In short, I want something from you. In exchange, I will give you a priceless gift, the opportunity for you to become one of the best and highest paid copywriters in the world. There he states it plain and simply. But throughout this entire 2 pages, he's doing it in all these sorts of different nuanced and subtle ways. It's so well done. And then here at the bottom, I also don't want you to make the same big mistake I made early in my copywriting career, but there's a great chance you're making that costly mistake right now. This is him tying it back to this subhead right here, the biggest mistake most copywriters make. He opened this up. He had you. Gotcha. You want to know what the mistake is? Well, I'm going to use that moment, that pause, that open loop and intrigue to insert some things that are a little bit off topic, but I know that I've got to put in here. I know I have to build my credibility. I know I have to make a promise to you before I can just leap into the problems here. I really want you invested, really want you baited into this promise. I really want you to sort of think and feel. And again, what's important about this idea of the other writers making 5 million is that is cred as well. That's cred that it's possible, that you could do it too, that it's not just Palmer. He's not just the one guy at the top 1% collecting all the money. He has a team of a dozen writers who sold over 185 million and earned over 5 million in copywriting royalties. So I want you to see how massively, study this copy, understand how easily and important it is to tie pretty much everything in the lead to the reader. Make it about your reader. What's in it for me? That's the most important question in the lead for your first 2 to 7 pages, depending on how long your lead is. You want to make sure you keep everything about the reader. Study this kind of copy. What's up, Copy Squad? If you want a full 1-hour in-depth review of the problems that most folks face when forming a lead, and in general, completing an entire sales argument, structuring it from start to finish, it all starts with the lead. So I have a 1-hour presentation that sort of dives into some of the biggest problems with the thinking and mindset whenever you sit down to write. The big problem with this idea of anticipate and overcome objections, which I have a little bit of a beef with. If you want to see that webinar and presentation and how to properly structure your lead, I invite you to check out copysquad.net/7 pages. On that page, I'll go into details about all the stuff I just talked about and more. Thanks so much for tuning in, and peace out, Copy Squad.